Pablo Banchero had a torn right oblique injury, and he's going to be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. So it means he could be out longer. That's an unfortunate blow for the Magic. Apollo's having a great season. He was averaging around 29 and 11 at the first 50-point game of the NBA season. So that's such to see. And hopefully he gets well soon. That could be back on the court as soon as possible. But missing that much time would have probably take him out of all NBA stuff because he'd miss has to play at least 65 games and he'll probably miss around 14 to 15 in that stretch. Next bit of news, CJ McCollum and Herb Jones are both hurt for the Pelicans. So now the Pelicans are down to Jonathan Murray, Herb Jones, and CJ McCollum for at least the next 2 weeks. CJ and Herb will come back within those weeks, but it could be longer. It sucks for the Pelicans. Yes, they got this new roster. You added to Dejounte. He gets hurt in the first game. And you think you still have a solid roster they can compete. You know the West is stacked with then CJ and Herb Jones. They suffer injuries as well, so that's just unfortunate to see. And prayers up to all these guys. Hopefully they can recover as soon as possible. Baron Corbin, Indy Hartwell, and Keegan Knox were let go by WWE earlier today. Baron Corbin and Indy Hartwell came as a surprise. Keegan Knox, not really, because she hasn't been involved with they haven't had her involved in many storylines much. She hasn't done much since being called up. But Indy Hartwell, I was surprised by. If you saw SmackDown tonight, she was on there in the tag team match with her and Candice lost to Naomi and Bailey. But there was pre-recorded last week. So she was released today. Then or the contract expired or whatever. And Baron Corbin, he had the Lone Wolf gimmick when he first came to WWE. That was great. Changed him and had him doing stuff with dog food and feuding with Roman, feuding with Kurt Angle. That wasn't such a high point. But then sending back to NXT, he goes on a run, has a great run, ends up with a tag team with Braun Breaker. And they were pretty successful. So Baron Corbin, he ends up getting called back up to the main roster, and WWE doesn't do anything with him. So that sucks for all three of them. But I feel like Baron Corbin and Indy Hartwell, they could have been used more. The Los Angeles Dodgers beat the Yankees in 5 games. Talk about that later on in the podcast. There was an interesting gentleman sweep of a series, and the Utah Hockey Club, they've seemed to be cold. They start the season 3-0. They're now 5-4-2, and I'm gonna be doing the power rankings later. And I was considering putting them in there, but they weren't able to make the cut because of how cold they've been since that hot start they got off to the season. And welcome, and that's the intro for today. Welcome to Weekly Sports Talk with Ed, episode 19. First thing I'm gonna get into is the World Series recap. I talked about game one last week, so I'm just go over games 2 through 5 and talk about all the stuff that I didn't cover. So Shohei Ohtani, he played with an injury throughout most of the series. I'm pretty sure it was in game two where he got hurt. He got hurt trying to steal a base, and then the notification came that he'd be available for game three, and he pretty much struggled even before that. He was struggling. He struggled the whole series, and the injury definitely played a part in it. So yeah, Aaron Judge, he had a pretty bad series until the fifth game when they needed to win. Even in the game that they did win, game four, he didn't do much there, but he played a lot better in that game five. Freddie Freeman had a home run in every game. Yes, and he ended up winning MVP. Phenomenal series from Freddie Freeman. Uh, like I said, I covered game one last week on the pod. Game two, Dodgers win 4-2, and they're up 4-0 for most of the game until the Yankees score two late in the ninth inning. But the Dodgers able to close it out. Game three, the score's the same. Dodgers win 4-2. Now the Dodgers are up 3-0. Pretty much looks like series over. Just clearly out talenting the Yankees at this point. We get to game four, and the Yankees hit us just on fire this game. Uh, and they win 11-4. Now 3-1 series. A 3-1, 3-0 comebacks have happened before, but it's not super likely that it happens. Then in game five, the Dodgers are down five. They're down 5 runs to 0. but they make a comeback. They end up winning the game 7-6, and they end up winning the World Series. The Dodgers get another World Series title. Freddie Freeman takes on the MVP. Wasn't the best series. Game one was definitely the best game of the series. We felt like this is a series they could have went seven, but when Aaron Judge turned to perform in most of the series, then the Yankees team that's still looking like they're outmatched. The manager leaving the Yankees pitcher in there a bit longer than he should have, that definitely hurt them. So the Yankees, they could have got the Yankees should have won that game five. You were up 5 runs to 0, then the Dodgers outrun them 7-1 after that. So that last loss, that was definitely embarrassing. But yeah, the Yankees, they had chances. The Dodgers, they were just simply the better team. They had the better players. Shohei Ohtani didn't even have a crazy series. But that's it for the World Series to recap. Moving on, next time we grading each NFL team. We're at the halfway point of the season. It's week 9. Most teams have played 7 or 8 games around this point. So I'm gonna be grading each team based off how they'll perform this year. Just because the team has a good record doesn't mean they'll have this amazing grade. But let's start with the AFC East. The Bills, I gave them a B plus. They're 6-2, leading the division by about 3 games. Yeah. Josh Allen's had a few bad performances against some of the top tier teams. That's why I'm not putting this at an A. It definitely brought it down for me to weigh. When Allen was playing some of those top tier teams, like the Texans, like the Ravens, he has to step up and play better. But the Bills have played good. Keon Coleman, he's looked good for a rookie. They just traded for Amari Cooper. That was a great move by the front office. So they get a B plus. The Jets, who were 3-6, and just got a very impressive win over the Texans. Also forgot to mention Will Anderson. He's injured. Prayers up to him as well. I made a video about Diggs already. So yeah, Jets impressive win, 3-6. Oh, if they didn't win that game, the grade would have been an F, but instead it's a D minus. So it's still not great. But even before that Devontae Adams trade, this team is still super talented. You have Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, and Braylon Allen, Aaron Rodgers. You have a great defense. This team shouldn't be where they. This team shouldn't be competing for last place in the division. It's like they're competing. Technically, they're competing for second, but they're also competing. They were just that last before that win that they got. They got Devontae and they lost the game to the Patriots. That's embarrassing. You shouldn't lose a game like that. So it went up from an F to a D minus based off the fact that they beat the Texans and got an impressive win. Rodgers, Wilson, hey, they all look good in that game, but they have to stay consistent if they have any shot of making the playoffs. I think it's pretty much dead now because once you get to 2-6, it's like there's a chance, but I don't see it happening, especially in the AFC, how tough of a conference it is. The Dolphins, they're 2-5. Just gave him a C because Tua, he was out with an injury. And when Tua was out, it showed how bad the Dolphins offense was. They were averaging 12 points uh, while he was out. Then he came back. They lost to the Cardinals, but they put up 27. So you can see how much Tua changes his team. So the record, they're bad, but I can't say that guys are underperforming when your star quarterback Tua is out for multiple weeks. So I just gave the Dolphins a C. For the Patriots, they're 2-6. I gave them a D grade. Have a bad record. The play looks bad. Jacoby Brissett, he's been bad. Expect him to be this veteran guy who can at least look solid, but he just looks bad. And when Drake May came in there, he clearly outperformed him. Unfortunately, Drake May, he had a head injury. I don't remember if it was a concussion or not, but hopefully he gets well soon because Drake May, he's been really solid. Hunter Henry has looked great, but this team has just been bad. You made some moves to get rid of some of your defensive guys in all season, throughout the season. Don't really know what direction they're going in. They got the win over the Jets earlier to split the series. Yeah, split the season series, but I don't really know what direction the Patriots are going in at this point. But it's the D. Moving on to the AFC West, you got the Chiefs who are 7-0, but they got a B grade. They're 7-0, but they're barely winning some of these games. And that's not taking. I'm not trying to take anything away from them because at the end of the day, it's a professional league, and a win is a win. So being 7-0, that's great. But my grade for them is a B because some of these games they're barely escaping. They won the Ravens game by a toe, and the Ravens could have played better and got that win. So it's not like it's just all luck on the Chiefs getting these wins. But it's like it's definitely some of these games they could have lost, and that's not a positive thing heading into when you're going into the playoffs, as other teams are going to be able to figure you out. It's already super hard. It's super hard to repeat, which they did, but repeating, we haven't seen it before. And the Chiefs could very well do it, but teams are going. But some of these mistakes, other teams are going to be able to capitalize on. It's just a way to see game. And the last teams recently that stayed undefeated haven't won in recent years. But I'm not using that to say they won't win because they're still very capable of winning. I just don't think they'll play it up to the standard that they can play to as a Super Bowl contender team. The Broncos 5-3, surprisingly, they get an A. Both Nixons look good. The defense is still good. I don't I don't have too much to say about Denver. It was supposed to be a rebuilding year. Excuse me. It was supposed to be a rebuilding year for Denver, but they're second in the division. They're in the playoff picture. They have a very important game coming up against the Ravens, and if they can win that, that's gonna say a lot about them and the Ravens in two completely different ways. But I've just been very impressed with how the Broncos have been this year. Honestly, I give them an A+ because there was no expectations for the Broncos this year to do anything. Because most people had them with one of the worst records in the league, probably. I know I didn't have them doing much this year. For the Chargers, they're 4-3. Get a I gave them a C+. Feel like they could have won. Feel like they could be right there where the Broncos are at with 5 wins. Justin Herbert, he's been okay. I don't think he's been great. He definitely needs to play better. Lad McConkey, he's looked really good. He's having a good rookie year. Remember, I did the rookie report, only picked 10 rookies. Lad wasn't in there, but Lad has played great. I've enjoyed watching him play. The Chargers, they look like an okay team. Obviously, got a new coach, and it's only heading into week 9, so they have time, but it's really no major issues I see with the team. It's just feel like they could get, I feel like Justin Herbert needs to play better. They can get more wins. The Raiders, who are 2-6 and clearly last in the division, they get a D-minus. Antonio Pierce, he had a really good campaign as an interim coach last year. Thought that'd stick with him throughout the next year. Then you got this weird quarterback situation with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And Gardner Minshew, he's pretty bad. You bring in Aiden O'Connell, then he gets hurt. So that's stuff. Now you're back to Minshew. And the defense isn't doing much. You're one of well before the Ravens lost to the Browns. The Raiders were the last team to beat the Ravens and Chiefs both, and then they somehow lost to the Panthers. So it's like the high points we thought would be defense, but to clearly give up a lot of points. Brock Bowers has looked good. He's going to be a great tight end, especially when they get a quarterback like the stuff that Brock Bowers is doing now with a bad quarterback. Imagine what he'll do with a good one in the next few years. So that's the only positive I see. But this team is bad. I thought they could be a mediocre team. I didn't think they'd be this below average. They should have a 4-4 record right now. You might say 2 wins isn't a lot. But when you think about it, in a 17-game season, 2 wins means a lot. Yeah, that's all I have for the Raiders. They suck. Brock Bowers is great. That's Antonio Pierce. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do from here. You also had to trade Devontae Adams and got nothing back for him that goes on the organization. I was very disappointed in that trade because you could have got more, traded him to the Saints or elsewhere, but you trade him to the Jets for nothing. Going to the North, the Steelers, they get an A. You had the quarterback situation. You start Russell Wilson was going to start. He gets hurt. Justin Fields, he starts and he's playing good. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. Mike Tomlin, he knows what he's doing. He's a great coach. He's like, it's been good, but I think it could be better. They insert Russell Wilson, and now the ball is getting thrown deep down the field. George Pickens is looking the best he's ever looked in his career. The offense is flowing. The vibes are great. Obviously, now the Steelers defense is amazing. Special teams is great. They've had block kicks and no block kicks in their last 3 or 4 games, if I'm not mistaken. Justin Fields isn't even mad. He's on the bench. Him and Russ, they're happy together. They're smiling. Russ is showing him everything that he's doing. So at least, and you never want to over injuries, but if somebody does go down, you know that you have a reliable backup. And if Russ is to retire soon or whenever, you know that you'll have Fields as a reliable backup. He could go anywhere and be really solid. It's just great resurgence from Russell Wilson. Got a coach that cares. His team, like I said, it's look great. I don't think they're contending for a Super Bowl. They'll definitely be in the playoffs, and they have a serious shot in winning the division. Their schedule was made really weird because 6 of their last 8 games are against it's against the AFC North. But yeah, Steelers they get an A. The 5-3 Ravens being very generous, giving this team a B minus. This this team is 5-3 and they should be 7-1. Lamar Jackson, he's having an MVP like year. Zay Flowers, he stepped up. Uh, I don't know where to start really. Let's actually Deontay Johnson. The Ravens, the Ravens defense is one of the worst in the league. So they decide, let's go get another receiver. You already have Zay Flowers, Nelson Aguilar, Rashad Bateman, who's a really solid core. And Deontay Johnson, he's better than Bateman and Aguilar. But adding another receiver doesn't help this team. The offense is already explosive. You also have uh, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, obviously Lamar's your quarterback. Got Derrick Henry in the backfield. I think Keaton Mitchell is coming back soon. So adding Deontay Johnson does nothing when your defense is still bad. So they need what the Ravens needed was defenders, and they went out and got a receiver for some reason. The Chiefs game, they very well could have went either way, and I'm not even talking about the toe with Isaiah Likely because that was out, but just by a toe. But that whole game, they had chances and they weren't able to capitalize on it. The Browns game, I love Jameis Winston. I'm glad to see that he's playing at a high level, and I hope he keeps that up. But there's no excuse for losing that game. That's a game that you have to win, especially in the division when you're trying to compete for the Steelers for that number 1 spot. You lose to them, allow the Steelers to maintain sole possession of the number 1 spot for now. They had it. And I forget the other game. The other game they lost to the Raiders in week 2. That was unexcusable. You blew a 10-point lead to a bad team. Like that Raiders team, they shouldn't have, even though I said the Raiders I expect to be mediocre, they shouldn't have been able to beat the Raiders that week. That the Ravens lost to Gardner Minshew out of all people. That shouldn't have happened. That's why I'm giving this team a B minus. Because you went out, you make these moves, but you also said but with the money you spend, you also sacrifice actually getting some good defenders because you lost some of your quality defenders in the offseason. So yeah, they get a B minus. The Bengals, they're 3-5. They get a C. Joe Burrow has been great. I don't have too much to say about him. It's just the defenses look really bad. Like the offense has been clicking, the defenses look bad. They just gave up 34 points to my Eagles on Sunday, and we didn't even score in the first quarter in that game. So the Eagles, they're finding ways to win. I'll get to them later. But yeah, the Bengals 3-5. They get a C grade because Burrow has been great. It's not really too much more you can ask him. He had 5 touchdowns in that game against the Ravens, and the Bengals still lost. So clearly the defense is doing their job. Then for the Browns, 2-6, gave them a D. Uh, yeah, when Deshaun Watson was having a really good game against the Bengals, and then he had to go out. They brought in DTR for some reason instead of Jameis Winston, and that was really stupid because as you see, Jameis Winston he balled out when he came into that game late and against the Ravens. He's going to be starting the rest of the year. At least that's what I assume. Like he could help this Brown team turn it around. But the reason I gave him a D, they're just Deshaun Watson before that Bengals game, he had been playing terrible. Team looked out of sorts. Even the defense, it was feel like the defense definitely still a high point for the Steelers. For, no, for the Steelers. for the Browns, they can always rely on their defense to play pretty good. But this team just hasn't looked good. Then moving to the AFC South, the Texans, who are 6-3 right now, gave them a B plus. They look look pretty good for the most part, but CJ Stroud has had two really bad games this year. The one against the Vikings and the one against the Jets that I talked about earlier. That game was really bad. It's like when you're going against those top teams that are really good defensive teams, you got to show that you can play against whoever, whenever. Like in week, that was early in the season. They lost to the Vikings. It was 34-7, and CJ Stroud just looked bad. And that's when you had your weapons there. And I know you didn't have Nico Collins or Stephon Diggs, but still, you had Tank Dell, you had Dalton Schultz, you had other guys, you had Joe Mixon, and you went out there and played bad against the Jets, only put up 13 points, and then you lose to one of the worst teams in the league. So for the most part, they've looked good. I still think they can contend. Well, Diggs out for the year, but I think with their core guys, I think they get things together. They'll still be one of the top teams in the playoffs, and they'll win this division. Because two of the wins they swept the Colts in two games that are very crucial, and I give them props for that. Division games can always be tough. That first one, week one, it was a shootout. They got the win. And then that second game, it was multiple mistakes made, and they were able to capitalize and get the win. So shout out to them for leading the division by 3 games. Uh, because they beat the Colts twice. So the Colts are 4-4, but they get a D minus. Anthony Richardson, like I said in my video from earlier this week, I'm very disappointed. He can't read the field very well. He's throwing bad interceptions. He's had the opportunity. He's only had 10 games, which I doesn't think is enough. But in those 10 games, he's looked really bad, not reading the field well, like I said, and it's just sad to see. Like when they put Flacco in, they have a much better chance of winning. But in the 2 games against the Colts that they had in the division, and they just needed to win one of them, Anthony Richardson was the reason for them losing those games. But he can throw the ball deep, but that can also be dangerous. Like there was near the end of the half, he's on his own 20 or somewhere down there, and he throws an interception, and I didn't get that. I don't know if that's something. And also, Anthony Richardson also subbed himself out of the game because he was tired. And Shane Steichen just let it happen. Shane Steichen, I like that as an offensive coordinator for the Eagles, but as a coach, I don't really know what to say this year because it feels like last season you looked okay, and now this season, I don't really know what's going on. They're 4-4, and they could realistically be 6-2. They could have won both those games against the Texans. They had a chance to be leading the division right now, and not many people expected them to be doing that. Jaguars, they're 2-6, get an upgrade. Uh, Trevor Lawrence getting paid 55 million a year, and he stepped up recently. It was a struggle to start the season, and I think even and I was on Trevor Lawrence real hard because of how bad he started the season, but he's picked it up. I can't deny that he's been playing better. Brian Thompson has been good. Um, but but yeah, this team, uh, for the expectations that some people put on this team, they've just underperformed. They should be playing better than 2-6. They went to London and got embarrassed by the Bears. Then they struggled against the Patriots in the first half. They ended up picking it up in the second half. But this team, they shouldn't be this bad. The Titans, they're 1-6. Everybody expected them to be bad, but the way, even the defense being good, I didn't expect it to be great. I gave the Titans a D. Uh, they could have won that Jets game, which is crazy to say, because you look at the Jets, they only lost that game by a touchdown. And I don't even, and I think the Jets are the better team, clearly, but just give them a D because they've been performing bad. But yeah, it's the Titans, and not much was expected out of them. The Commanders are 6-2, leading the NFC East. Had to give them an A plus because there weren't expectations for them at all. Some people expect them to take a jump, of course, by a few games, add Jaden Daniels, getting Austin Eckler in the offseason. So then you got these pieces, and it's come together pretty well. The game against the Bears, they got a game-winning touchdown. Jaden Daniels threw a Hail Mary to win the game, and it was Noah Brown who got the catch. Uh, but yeah, that game wasn't as good as people want to hype it up to be. It was a it was an okay game until the ending when Jaden Daniels made that spectacular play. Yeah, the Eagles 5-2, second in the NFC East. Um, Get the Eagles a B minus. They won a few games in a row now. Seems like they're getting things together. They still haven't scored in the first quarter since week 17 of last year. They've been able to win games, but they need to be able to score too, especially to start the game off. Because they gave up a 10-minute drive to the Bengals to start that game on Sunday, and you can't do that if you want to win. Luckily, they were able to get the win as they turned it around in the second half, but it's no consistency in doing that. The Cowboys 3-4, gave them a D plus, have no running game. Dak hasn't been the Dak we know it can be. CD Lamb needs to play better. You have injuries all over the defense, so I can't say too much there. But it's like this team been to the playoffs, had multiple 12-5 seasons. And really only thing he lost was Tony Pollard. I didn't think it'd be that big of an impact toward how bad Zeke and the other backs have played. But it's just looked bad this year. And they need to turn it around. And this is interesting because the NFC East still hasn't had a repeat winner since the early 2000s. And the Giants, 2-6, gave them a D. Daniel Jones isn't playing up to par. He needs to be better for them to win games. Dexter Lawrence has been great. He's having a good season, but he won't be in DPO wild conversations because of how bad the Giants are. That's how great of a defender I think he is. But the Giants suck. So if you're finishing 3-14, then you won't be winning any awards. Moving on to the NFC West, where there's a three-way tie between the Cardinals, 49ers, and Seahawks, who are all 4-4, but all these teams have different grades for different reasons. The Cardinals I gave a B because I expect them to be at near the bottom of the division. Kyler Murray came back, Marvin Harrison has such a tough to make consistent. He's a rookie, so obviously it's going to take some time. You got Trey McBride, you got James Conner, and this isn't a bad roster. It's solid. And 4-4, that's not a bad record, but you can expect them to be at the top because they got wins over the 49ers and the Rams. So that's yeah. But if they beat the Rams or the Seahawks, well, they got wins over two of those teams. I know for sure. I know for sure they beat the 49ers. And it was either the Seahawks or the Rams. But yeah, that's how the Cardinals are leading. So I gave them a B. 49ers, I gave a C because they'll haven't looked as good. They've had some injuries. That's the main reason because I didn't want to put it super high because they have a 4-4 record, but I couldn't put it super low because they're also dealing with injuries on both sides of the ball. So I gave them a solid C. Then for the Seahawks, I gave them a D plus because yes, the Cardinals did beat the 49ers, the Seahawks, not the Rams. Yeah, I remember now because the Seahawks, they had two chances. If they would have beat the Cardinals and 49ers, they could have been leading the division. So that's why their grade is lower than you might expect. But even though they're 4-4 and that's a solid start, they should be leading the division. But I know they got the tough stretch of 3 games in 10 days, which not a fan of that because that's a that's a huge workload on those players. Not a fan of that. But they had chances at leading the division by at least 2 games, and they weren't able to capitalize. So I was disappointed that they couldn't get that done. So I gave them a D plus. Then for the Rams, they're 3-4, last, but they're the only team that's had their bye week in the division so far. Puka Nakua, Cooper Cup just came back recently, and they were able to get a win against the Vikings on not this past Thursday, but last Thursday. Yeah. So they have a seed like same reason as the 49ers. This team could be better, but they've had injuries, especially missing your top three receivers. And Matthew Stafford was still playing decent, even with them out. So they get a seed. NFC North, which is the most competitive division in football right now. The Lions are 6-1. I gave an A+. Only have one loss on the year. Uh, Aiden Hutchinson was having a DPOY type season until he suffered the injury. They still found ways to win. They were able to beat the Vikings in a crucial game that they needed to stay atop the division. The Packers 6-2, Vikings 5-2. Gave both of those teams an A. The Packers, since Jordan Love had missed some games and Malik Willis was able to step in, look good, and the games that he started, they were able to win those. And then Jordan Love also went out in the last game. But Malik Willis, he was able to step in, just been able to step in where anytime Jordan Love goes down and looks solid. The Packers team has looked great. Like I said, they have one of the deeper wide receiver rooms because there's not a clear star, which is actually a good thing because it's like the defenses never know how to prepare for the Packers. Then the Vikings, they get an A because it wasn't much expectations with Sam Darnold being the quarterback, but they have a great old line. The defense is one of the top defenses in the league. Sam Darnold has played solid. Still got Justin Jefferson, who's a top receiver. Got Jordan Addison. Then TJ Hawkinson should be coming back soon as this Sunday, I think. And that'll be huge for them. The Bears, who are 4-3, I gave a B+ because they started slow, but they'll pick it up. And it started slow. It's like there was games that they could have won. I'm pretty sure they beat the Titans with that game. Caleb Williams, he had like 90 something passing yards. Caleb Williams has been good. The What's his name? Tyreek Stevenson, him talking during the play, that's just dumb. It's kind of unprofessional. I don't know why he would do that. You need to be playing defense, trying to stop that Hail Mary from happening. Then you're the one that tipped the ball to Noah Brown. So it was quite embarrassing from him. And that's not the reason. Well, them losing that game is definitely because you don't see Hail Marys like that pretty often. But yeah, they have a B+. They've been solid. And I think they can have a good run. I don't see all four teams making the playoffs. I, the Lions, Packers, and Vikings, all three of them can make it. I don't see the Bears making it this year. In the last division, the NFC South, I start the Panthers to get it out the way. They're 1-7, get an F. They somehow beat the Raiders. I, I don't know how that happened. Uh, Bryce Young, unfortunately, you look bad. The whole team looks bad except Trevor Hubbard, who's had a good season. I was hard on him last year. Trevor Hubbard, he's top five in rushing yards right now. So shout out to him. But this team is terrible. They traded Deontay Johnson, say they don't want to blow it up. You might as well. There's no point in holding on to anything you have in Carolina. The Saints, 2-6, they have a D. Started 2-0, have lost six in a row. I know they've had injuries, but all that hype just for you to start losing that many games in a row. Even with injuries, to just lose 6 games in a row, that's embarrassing. The Buccaneers, 4-4. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are going to be out for a minute. I gave them a C because they just feel like the Buccaneers always do this because the division is so weak. They can just play mediocre throughout the season, finish with 9 or 10 wins, and get to the playoffs and make a little bit of noise. Probably going to happen this year with the injuries. Uh, Mike Evans won't reach. He won't get his yards again that he's gotten every season. He's not getting over 1,000 this year. He's had 10 straight years of doing it, but unfortunately, it won't get done this year. Then 5-3 Falcons, B-. They could have been better. I mean, they could have had a better record and had more of a lead on the division, but it's cool. They've been solid. That's pretty much it for that. Yeah, the next topic is when should college teams be ranked? And let me know what y'all think in the comments. I think as far as it goes for, well, let's start with football, because this is always the biggest talk of how what teams are overrated, what teams are underrated, this and that. You have 12 weeks in the season and 12 games in the season. Teams probably shouldn't be ranked until week 5 or week 6 because Florida State, Oklahoma State, they started off the season ranked, and now both of them are unranked. Florida State, they've won one game out of 7, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. They're 1-7, have a terrible record. Ohio State, not Ohio State, Oklahoma State, forgive me. After they beat Arkansas, and they barely beat them in overtime. They've just fell down since that because they keep losing games, keep getting close games, and they aren't able to pull away. If Arkansas was a good fourth quarter team, they could have won their game. You have other teams like Army, Navy, who they weren't ranked until later in the year, and or later, yeah, and you had them at 20 in the late 20s. And Army could be, and obviously Navy, they probably failed after the loss they took to Notre Dame, which they needed that if they had any chance to make the playoffs. They still have a small chance, but it probably won't happen. You got Army, who they'll be playing Air Force this week, I think. Then they got Notre Dame soon. But teams like that, even teams like Colorado, who they're are they 6-2? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they're 6-2 because they already qualified for a bowl game. You could argue if you waited, you could have seen where they could be ranked at. This feels like ranking these teams before anything actually plays out. It's pretty premature because we see how consistently things have changed. And now that 12 teams get in the playoffs, every game means a lot more. It's like you see how, like I said, the rankings change consistently on a weekly basis because you got top teams facing each other every week. You might have a 1-4 matchup, a 2-3 matchup. These are games you usually see in the playoffs and with all these teams with the conferences and stuff. You're getting it early in the season or like in the halfway point. So then some of these teams like Alabama, they already have. Does Alabama have 2 losses? I could be wrong. But teams like that, they already have or whoever they beat last week, they have 2 losses. I think it's LSU. Like LSU, they already have 2 losses. They can't afford another one, or they're probably out. Like you're not going to see a team with 3 in the playoffs, most likely. And then for basketball, the rankings already out. The season starts this weekend, and I'm excited for the college basketball season. I'm gonna be watching women's and men's. Did check out one women's exhibition game. Pretty sure it was Division 2, but it was still cool to watch. Uh, The game almost went to overtime. It was really the ending was really weird. But yeah, we're gonna see some of these top teams. They won't look like who they are. I think Arkansas is ranked 16th for men. And then I think Arkansas is gonna have a good season, but that's just an example. Like they could be 16 and they could start the season 0-3. I don't think they will. They might start the season 2-1. But it's like you see these teams and then like after a few weeks, like in the basketball season, you have 30 games. Probably after about 7 or 8 games, when you can start ranking teams, that's as close. It's close to like the 1/3 point of the season. It's almost there. And you don't want to wait too late to do it, but I feel like doing it preseason is way too early. Like the same thing can be said in volleyball when you got a team like SMU who has wins over teams like Louisville, who's one of the best teams, and they have wins over Louisville and Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken, who are 2 of the top 4, 2 of the top 5 teams in college volleyball right now. I think they're about 16-5, 16-6, something like that. And I don't think they're ranked. But if you waited after they got their win against those 2 powerhouses, they could have been in the rankings at like 25, 24. But I just think ranking teams for preseason is just too early. You also don't want to wait too late. Feel like after a few games, you can get a good gauge. If not a good, you can get a decent gauge of how a team is and how they might perform. I feel like that's a better way to say it. Next, WWE Halloween Havoc took place on Sunday. I didn't do a recap on YouTube, but I do a recap right now. I'll make it quick for everybody. No, everybody doesn't watch NXT. I usually try to catch the pay-per-views because I'm not able to watch the weekly shows. But it started off with a decent match. Tony D'Angelo defending the North American title against Obafemi. It was a solid match. Then the interference started. I don't mind a little bit of interference, but it felt like the family was way too involved in the match, and they kind of took over. And Obafemi, he lost again. As with Tony D'Angelo, he was able to retain the North American Championship. And I think he'd have a good run with the belt. It's just a little bit of interference is fine, but I felt like it was too much where it was taken away from the match. What followed was Roxanne Perez, NXT Women's Champion, and Cora Jade taking on Julia and Stephanie Vancouver. And this was a great match. This is probably the best match of the show. Tag team match. Probably should have been the first match because it the would have got the crowd really going. And Julia and Stephanie, they ended up getting the win. And it was like I said, it was a fantastic match. What followed, Rich Holland and Andre Chase had an ambulance match. And this match was pretty mediocre. I don't think Rich Holland is a great wrestler. He's obviously known for injuring people, one of the bigger names being Big E. And he's a wrestler. Accidents happen. I know he wasn't trying to do that. But yeah, it was just an unfortunate event. Though he got a lot of hate for it. But it's wrestling. At the end of the day, accidents happen. But I don't think Ridge is a great wrestler like this because I've seen him on the main roster, seen him in NXT. And it could just be because of Andre Tate's style, because he's a tag team wrestler, and he really like this. I've seen him do tag team stuff, and he looks good. But him as a singles star being in a singles match, it just doesn't look good. And you put a tag team guy with a not so great wrestler, and they have a one-on-one avalanche match, and it didn't really work out too well. It was a pretty mediocre match. Kalani Jordan had to defend her women's North American Championship in a gauntlet match. First, she had to face every member of Fatal Influence. First, it was Jasmine Nix, who she was able to get the win over. Then JC Jane came out there because she was next, and Kalani was able to beat JC. And then after that, Fallon Henley came out. But before that, after JC Jane lost, he delivered a cheap shot. Then Fallon Henley came out there, and and both the matches before that, they were pretty good. Uh, Kalani going toe to toe with them, and then you get to that last match with Kalani and Fallon Henley, JC James, Jasper Nix. They come back out there to interfere, cause distractions, and make Kalani lose. And Fallon Henley is the new NXT Women's North American Champion. The gala match, it was pretty fun. I wish Kalani Jordan would have won because it would have been like, wow, she just won 3 matches in a row, and that would have been great for history. Like having a gauntlet match, defending your title and getting the win. And then the main event, it was Trick Williams and Ethan Page for the NXT Championship in a doubles playground match. This match was okay. It wasn't too bad, wasn't too great. And Trick Williams, he was able to get the win, even though it was a rough spot where, because in doubles playground, there's no rules, there's no rope breaks, none of that. And Trick Williams, he had Ethan Page pinned, and Ethan Page put his foot on the rope, and the ref stopped the count for some reason, but he shouldn't have. And I don't know if that was part of the script or or not. But yeah, that happened. That was a confusing moment. Yeah. Next, as the PBA Strike Derby took place this past Sunday, and I'm gonna go over the top 3 moments because I did do a recap video earlier in the week. But the top 3 moments from that is Jesper Stevenson going on a run as a 7 seed to win it all. He was ranked number 7 out of the fans voted him 7 out of these 8 guys somehow, and he went all the way, went toe to toe in each of his matchups, won 3 matches in a row to get the win and win the 2024 PBA Strike Derby. So that was one of the best moments. Like seeing him get that win, I'm pretty sure I posted on my story. Like that was really fun to watch. The second best moment is Andrew Anderson and EJ Tackett going blow for blow. It was, they had 13. Well, after the 2 minutes or something that they had to see how many pins see how many tracks they can get. They both had 13. Like Anderson, I'm pretty sure he was up first, and EJ Tackett had to clutch up because he saw what he needed, and it was Because Anderson went first, had his 2 minutes, then he set the tone, like then Tacky knew he needed 13. So Tacky went up there, he got 13, then you went into a roll-off round. Andrew Anderson, he got the strike that he needed. And then EJ Tackett, he needed a strike, but he was only able to get 9 pins. So Andrew Anderson, he won that 14 strikes to 13, and that was highly entertaining. And then number three was the second round, because the second round featured two buzzer beaters, basically. Andrew Anderson over Chris Vaughn. He just needed one more strike to get it, and he got it at the last second. Then Jasper Season over Jason Belmont. He needed one more strike to get it. He was able to get it. That's how we got to that finals matchup. So yeah, Andrew Anderson and EJ Tackett going at it in a classic was fun to watch. And the second round with multiple buzzer beaters, highly entertaining. Then Jasper Stevenson going on a run as a seven ranked guy. It's just an exciting thing to see. But moving on, National Basketball Association. Y'all lie. The Los Angeles Clippers just played last night on Thursday. They completed their second of 16 back-to-backs. We're not even 2 weeks into the season, and they've already had two back-to-backs. Okay, that's not all. And this isn't even about back-to-backs. This is scheduling in general. But I'm going to focus on back-to-backs first. The league average for this year is 15. The 76ers will play. They're one of the teams I know that are playing 15 back-to-backs this year. League average is 15 this year. A few years ago, the average was 13. The NBA said they wanted to cut down on back-to-backs, but they clearly lied because it went up. There's no reason any team should have 16 back-to-backs. I'm not just saying the Clippers, but they're the team that I noticed, and I know the 76ers had 15, and I saw the statistics, and it was there's an average of 15 back-to-backs this season, but the NBA said they wanted to cut down on back-to-backs. So the Clippers have played two back-to-backs, and it's not even 2 weeks into the season. That makes absolutely no sense to me. And then the NBA wonder, and fans wonder why these guys are injured and why they don't want to play back-to-backs as much now. Because you're playing so much, it doesn't make sense. Like, why if you're playing on November 7th and November 8th, following next week, are you playing November 13th and November 14th? That doesn't make sense. So yeah, I feel like the back-to-backs is getting out of hand. It's too many for these players. The Clippers lost both of those. Well, the last back-to-back they just played, they lost both of them. I forgot what happened in that first week, but I know the Clippers, they lost this recent one. They lost to the Blazers somehow. And I don't know how the Clippers fell apart. Because I was watching the game, they just fell apart. And it doesn't make sense to me with the Clippers. Then they lost to the Suns, and Booker, he put up 40, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure Anthony Simons went off in that Blazers game. Nothing crazy, but he had like his average Anthony Simons game. But shout out to Avita Zubac. He's been doing his thing. He's averaging 20 points, about 8 rebounds. I could be wrong on the rebounds. He might be averaging more. But Zubac is playing great this season. And I don't know how long Kawhi's going to be out. But if Zubac keeps it up, this Clippers team can be solid, even though I didn't expect much from him. And Harden, he looks like him old self. Norman Powell, he's been great. So even though they've lost last few games recently, the team is looking solid. But back to what I was saying about how bad the scheduling is. Trailblazers and Pelicans, out of their first 8 games, both of their first 8 games, they played each other 3 times. So they're not going to play it all again later in the year. So then when it comes to, it's hard to gauge an opponent, especially when it comes to playoffs. And Portland, they won't be a playoff team, of course, but just imagine that they are. When you uh if they were to meet up in the playoffs, how does either team prepare for each other? If out of their first 8 games of the season, they played each other 3 times and then see each other after that, unless they were to meet up in the in-season tournament or something like that. See, that's what doesn't make sense because it's like they do these little mini series, and then it's hard for you to gauge your opponents. Like if you're playing a team 3 times, they should be once in the start beginning of the season, once in the middle, like near the All Star break, once near the end, because that's a better way for coaches to gauge, oh, this is the adjustments I should make because he's been on fire recently, this or that. It's gonna be harder to try to make those adjustments in a 7 game series if you've already seen this opponent 3 times to start the season and don't see this opponent for another 6, 7 months. And then a combination of both is the Pelicans and Warriors. They played back-to-back nights. They played, I forgot what days it was, but they played one night, and I remember watching the game. Then I checked the NBA schedule because I was like, I wonder who's on tonight. Then it says the Warriors and Pelicans again. I was like, I just watched this. So, and it's not really an entertainment thing. It's just like that's kind of weird. Oh, I just watched this game last night. Then I turn around and they playing again the next day. That's kind of weird. So why do you have two teams playing back to back against each other? And then they're doing this mini series within these conferences, making it a harder job for the coaches to gauge their opponents. And the Pelicans and Warriors, those are two teams that can make the playoffs. But I just hate the way that the NBA made the scheduling. And it could be because of the in-season tournament. They say they want to cut down on travel, but you're not. But you lied about cutting down on back-to-backs. So it's really hard to believe what the NBA is saying at this point. But yeah, that's it for that. Next is my recap for AEW. I wanted to split up what I'm trying to do is split up the sections so nobody gets confused. Like AEW and WWE, they're two different wrestling companies. So I feel like if I put it, don't want to put it back to back because that might get confusing. Now separating it a little bit. So AEW, All Elite Wrestling, that recap. Orange Cassidy started the show off with a very strong promo and talking about how John Moxley took out his best friend Chuck Taylor and how he wants Moxley a full gear. Then later in the show, at least Moxley attempting the challenge. Then it's a brawl between the Blackpool Combat Club and all of the locker room. And Blackpool Combat Club, they're able to get out of there. Yeah. And that's been the story every week. Blackpool Combat Club was just taking over. So, yeah, after Orange Cassidy promo, Adam Cole had a match against Buddy Matthews, which was really entertaining. Adam Cole hurt his ankle, and Buddy Matthews, he called him out. He was like, just gonna walk away. Then, then he kept talking. And Adam Cole, he was like, you know what? Got the doctor off of him, pushed him off, even with a hurt ankle. Came back, he was able to get the win. It was a really fun match. Adam Cole and Buddy Matthews shook hands, and the lights go out. Come back on, and Adam Cole is looking a Malachi Black dead in his face. Then we see that's gonna be the next matchup. Adam Cole and Malachi Black. Yeah, that was a really solid match. Kyle Fletcher, he called out Will Ospreay, who he took out uh last week. And uh well not last week, but it's the last pay-per-view. And his Kyle Fletcher, he cut his hair, all that. I don't know. I don't know how big of a fan I am of this storyline. It just feels like they're dragging it because then this other guy got involved. Who I don't know because I don't think I've been as in tune with AEW as others might be. But yeah, a private party defeated the Young Bucks to become the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. This was a fun match. This was the best match of Dynamite, and it was great seeing AEW build a new tag team. But what happened after the match, the Young Bucks they handed uh, the private party the tag team titles, and obviously like there was and clearly they were showing a sign of respect. Like even like this wasn't planned or scripted. It didn't look like that at all. It was like y'all deserve this moment. Take these titles and run with it. And then the Young Bucks they got backstage. It was like it's too. This later in the show. It was like it's too much chaos going on. They just leaving. Then guys talking to forget his name, but he was talking to Nick uh Nick Jackson, Matt Jackson. He was already in the car, but Nick he was like, I'm done with this. I'm working from home. I was like, wow, okay. Like he's the EVP, so he can do that. But he's a wrestler, and he says he's working from home. I guess that's a funny statement to make in a wrestling arena. But yeah, Then Chris Statlander, she had to Camille her first loss. Pretty basic match. I mean, it could have been longer, but actually, no, it couldn't. That's the problem I got with AEW. Before I get to that last match, AEW always goes overtime, and I hate it because it's like I've been to one show and it went overtime, so I didn't even finish. What was it? Because I stayed for Dynamite, obviously, to watch the whole show. Then Rampage came on after that. And I didn't stay for the main event because it was taking too long. I had to get home that night. So it was a fun show. But AEW does this consistently where they're going overtime each and every week and trying to record that on TV. It's like it's not gonna get all of it because then I had to record the other shows to come on after it. And that's just a lot. So I ended up catching the end of the match on YouTube. But I wish it would go off at its normal time. But yeah. And the main event, it was Swerve Strickland versus Shelton Benjamin, and it was a good match. Swerve Strickland, he was able to get the win, but Bobby Lashley makes his debut in AEW. Then Lashley and Swerve stand face to face. And Shelton Benjamin, MVP, and Lashley they take out Swerve Strickland and Personata to end the show. And you got the Hurt Business standing. Well, I don't know what they. I think they're gonna be called something else, but they were the Hurt Business in WWE, and they're standing tall. So yeah, that's how that played out. Next is my NHL early season power rankings. Some of these seem to play like 11 games, somewhere around there. So, and then, but it's just based off of that. Like this could change midway through the season. It obviously won't stay like this. I get started with a one, or actually I should go from 10 to one because I just hit the top 10 teams. Number 10, I went with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're 6-4. They're 6-4 and 1, 13 points. Have won back-to-back games, and I haven't. I'm recording this Friday night, so I wasn't able to watch any hockey games tonight. So some of these stats, when you're hearing it, may not sound accurate, but that's fine. Yeah, the Toronto Maple Leafs that won their last two games look solid this year. Not too much to say about them. The LA Kings, they're 6-3 and two with 14 points. Won their last game. They've been pretty good this year. The Minnesota Wild at 8-6-1 and two with 14 points. They've won their last game. Number seven, I had the New Jersey Devils at 7-4 and two with 16 points. They've won two in a row. New Jersey Devils look really solid. Feel like they could have 8 wins right now. It's just sometimes doesn't always go in your favor. But I definitely think they could have a win or two more on the season with the way they've been playing. And I think they'll be one of the top teams in the league this year, just based off of what's been going on so far. Number six, the Tampa Bay Lightning, 7-3 overtime games. They get the job done. 14 points, 3-game winning streak. Been looking good recently. Carolina Hurricanes, 14 points after starting 2-2. They've won five in a row and have a 7-2 record right now. So that's really impressive. Don't know how long the win streak keep going, but that's really impressive for the Hurricanes. Number four, the Washington Capitals. Put them at 7-2. They got 14 points. They won their last two games. That looked good. Number three, the Vegas Golden Knights. 15 points, one loss. Put, yeah, they lost their last game, but Vegas has been really good this season, and that one loss won't do too much to them. The one overtime game won't do too much to them. Feel like they've just been really solid all year. The Winnipeg Jets, they're 9-1. They won their last game, and they do have the best record in the NHL, but I don't think they're the best team right now. Record wise, it says that they got 18 points. Stats, they look good. But I think the Florida Panthers, who are 8-3-1 with 17 points on a 4-game winning streak, the champions from last year. I think they're still the best team in the NHL right now. And that can very well change, but I still think they're a contending team and they can have a chance to go for the cup again this year. Now it's time for the last segment of the show, which is all as always, athletes of the week. For PBA, I had to go with Jesper Stevenson. Obviously, he won the Strike Derby and three very competitive rounds. And as a seventh seed, went all the way and won. MLB, Freddie Freeman from games 2 to 4, from games 2 to 5, 15 at bats, 4 runs, 4 hits, and 8 RBIs. They hit a home run in every single game. Absolutely amazing stuff from Freddie Freeman. Very impressed with what he was able to do. So shout out to him. For AEW, one with Private Party, their match, like I said, was the best on Dynamite. Them able to win those tag titles from the Young Bucks, it was really good. And even when the match it felt like it was getting too long, they were just able to keep it alive, keep it flowing. So shout out to Private Party. For WWE, had a tough choice between either Lash Legend or Kalani Jordan, but they both ended up taking L's. I went with Lash Legend though. She was in a fatal four-way with Io Sky, Piper Niven, and Bianca Belair. The Lash Legend, she showed off her skills, showed what she can do. She ended up taking the pin versus to Io Sky, but it was a really great fatal four-way. And Lash Legend, she really shined. She was the one that stood out. But shout out to Kalani Jordan because she was really close to winning it. And yeah, it was a tough decision, but had to go with her. NFL, one with Khalif Raymond, the return man for the Lions. He had 5 returns for 190 yards. That's after 38, and he had 1 touchdown. And the Lions beat the Titans 52-14. And the big reason why they were able to win was because of Khalif Raymond. His returns were getting them in positions to where it was making it easier for them to score and get down the field. So shout out to Khalif Raymond for having a phenomenal game. For the NBA for this week, went with Anthony Davis. And each of the last 3 games he's put up, each of the last 3 games throughout this week, he's had at least 20 points. He's had at least 10 rebounds. He shot 50% or better from the field. They beat the Raptors today. They did lose to the Suns and the Nets that are 1-2 in the week. But he's also had 6 steals in these 3 games, 6 steals combined. So he's averaging 2 steals over the last 3 games from this week. So I have to give it went to if the title last week, giving it to 80 this week. And that's it for this episode of Weekly Sports Talk with Ed, episode 19. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And that's it for this episode.